Oh, wow.
I'm still
okay.
covering.
Okay, good. How did you like it?
I thought it was great. It's so tense and riveting.
Okay, thank you.
I'm obviously, having done journalism, I just love anything that kind of focuses on that world. It's always great.
Oh yeah, I think I'm only going to do movies about journalism from now on, because journalists just love it.
It's true. So, I mean, obviously the film has a whole myriad of themes to it, but the one really vital one, I think, is obviously the kind of moral and ethical role of kind of journalists and reporting. How important do you think that is? And was that a big sort of temptation to getting involved in telling this story, in focusing on that kind of theme?
Oh, absolutely. That's, I think, why we thought this angle, the angle of the media or the reporters on this story that we had films before and was so interesting, were exactly these questions. And I think two things that made it such a, turning point, or such a unprecedented day in a way. One is that it was a group of sports broadcasters that suddenly had to make that switch. So as from reporting on the sports to reporting on this tragedy, and they were live. So they were confronted with these questions under two conditions. The one is that they were not trained or experienced in reporting on a situation like this. They were just before reporting on a swim race. And now they are confronted with questions like, what do we do if someone gets shot in front of the camera? And as writers, we immediately thought that authors, since they didn't have to deal with that question before in their professional life, you can ask that question in a, authentic way. And the other thing is that ABC Sports, or there were other TV channels on that day in Munich, but we chose the perspective of ABC Sports because they were the only ones having a live camera on it. Because as we show it in the movie, in the morning they had this idea of pushing at one of the studio cameras. And so the other thing is that all these questions that they got confronted with was under, while they were live, while they were going. So it was under high time pressure.
I mean, because the technology back then, obviously, I mean, it was very advanced for the time, but was that but obviously nowhere near as advanced as now. Was that quite interesting as a storytelling device for you to work with? All the kind of physical aspect of how it all, I mean, I love the subtitles were even inputted physically.
No, it's absolutely crucial. I think it's almost like a character of the movie, the technology. And I like that you said it's physical, because that's what we try to give today's audience a feel on how physical that was. And I want to say, beyond it being a visual gimmick, as you would say, our movie is also about how technology has an influence on the media, and in that sense also has an influence on how we perceive news. So today we are living, obviously, in a time that's another turning point in media history. We have developments that are going so fast, we don't even yet know what it means. And so, especially from today's point of view, it might be interesting to take a step back and see how back then that was this other turning point.
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about the kind of changing face of news reporting? Because now, I mean, people feel, if this happened now, everyone would film it on their phones and it would all be uploaded to kind of social media before it even made the news broadcasting.
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to answer maybe by saying that a lot of people that work today in today's newsroom have seen the movie. And they said, like, as obviously, as you say, technology is completely different and everything is faster. But the bigger questions are still exactly the same. It's like, how fast do you let out how fast do you report or let out the news? How many confirmed sources do you need? Censorship, what do you show, what do we don't show? And wording, for example, like how do we describe a situation, what words do we use? So that's, for us, was so interesting that we had a feeling that even though it's such a long time ago and there was this group of sports broadcasters, it's the exact same questions that are asked in today's newsrooms.
I wanted to ask about your wonderful cast. I mean, it's such a gifted kind of ensemble you've got here. How much easier does that make your role when you know that they're all such meticulous actors who bring so much of their own kind of skill and experience to the characters, that you can kind of not sort of give them away to them with that kind of full sense of trust that they've got them and they're going to do a good job?
Of course, that makes it much easier for me as a director. You, of course, try to choose the best actors and actresses so that you... that they bring all of that. But I want to add that I also had actors that have had a high level of dedication, of also especially being prepared on portraying these people in their professional environment. So, for example, John Magaro went to control rooms of real sports broadcasts. Partly I went together with him because we wanted to observe these people and see how the structures are and how they behave, how they interact with each other. And he literally then, took this for his play, or it's a little example, but it's a good example. Ben Chaplin had to learn how to thread in 60mm film into a Steenbeck because, he does that in the film, and we wanted, even if it's just a close-up of him, you can feel it if he did that 100 times or not.
That's so cool. I'm going to ask him about that. Obviously, the film, like we said, is very riveting, and then it's one that has a lot of meaning, particularly in regards to the kind of responsibility of journalism, as we've discussed. Can you recall any films that had a very lasting imprint on you in your kind of formative years that you think kind of opened your eyes up or really kind of made you ask lots of questions when you were younger?
Oh, I could. This list couldn't stop. We would be like sitting here till the evening of films that inspired me. I want to say, for this film, there's a documentary that was really had a huge impact on me. That's actually by a British filmmaker, Kevin MacDonald. One Day in September, which I saw as a teenager in the movie theaters, and that's the first time also I learned about this tragedy. I want to maybe mention that we also studied movies that are taking place in a very tight space, like for example Wolfgang Petersen's Das Boot, which is also about a crew trapped in a tight space with the telescopes and the sonars as the only connection to that major or tragic event going on the surface. Or also a film that we studied, another British filmmaker, United 93 by Paul Greengrass, where you see the events of 9/11 from the perspective of the air traffic controllers partly. And the way he shot that was a big inspiration for us.
Brilliant. Oh, Kevin MacDonald's a great filmmaker, isn't he? I've interviewed him a few times as well.
Oh, no, I only, in Telluride this year, I met him for the first time, and I wrote him and said to him, asked if we could meet because his film was such a big inspiration, and he was a good meeting.
Yeah, nice guy. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with the release of the film. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey You Guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey You Guys!
Hey, you